The year is 1998. People are lining up in droves outside of their local stores in hopes to get a copy of one game. Well, two. Pokemon Red and Blue.
Hey, little buddy, want a ride?
Pikachu!
Yeah, whatever.
As soon as people got their hands on the game, they began to explore every nook and cranny. And over time, urban legends about the game also began to spread, mainly through the playground or classroom. From the Mew under the truck to legendary Pokemon in Bill's garden, people created stories about nearly every aspect of the game. Around 12 years later, someone would create a rumor about a certain town. But before that, we have to go back to the region that this urban legend supposedly happened in. Flashback 2 years. On February 27th of 1996, Pocket Monsters Red and Green would release in Japan. Just like in the United States, everyone was having a lot of fun playing the game. I mean, these games are widely regarded as the highest sold RPGs of all time, so it only makes sense. As people traversed the game, they encountered cute Pokemon and fun trainer battles. The only eerie areas were places like Viridian Forest, Rock Tunnel, and Mount Moon. But even then, these places were just a little dark and not very creepy. And then there was Lavender Town. From the giant tower of deceased Pokemon looming near the entrance to the unnerving theme, this was a place that likely creeped out many who entered, and apparently in Japan, it even harmed them physically. Fast forward to 2010. YouTube is beginning to gain popularity and the most recent Pokemon games are now Heart Gold and Soul Silver. In fact, it's already been 6 years since the Gen 1 remakes released on Game Boy Advance. Even so, the fire for those first generation games hasn't been quenched. In fact, for one person, the fire to create the urban legend for the games was now burning brighter than ever. A mysterious user named DanOW posted a story to Pastebin about those same Japanese kids in 1996 that I talked about before. This story claims that the deaths of children ages 10 to 15 peaked in Japan around 1996 due to hidden tones within the Lavender Town theme. These deaths were caused by non-outside influences, we'll say. The few that were saved would only respond with screaming and scratching at their eyes. In other words, this left these people completely mentally broken. This is where most people stop when it comes to the urban legend, but it's not actually where it ends. At least, not on the 2010 Pastebin anyway. The local detectives begin to confiscate every single Pokemon cartridge and eventually get into contact with Junichi Masuda, the music composer for the game. But after listening to the song with Masuda, nothing happens. Weird. Surely it has to be in the code then. After multiple leads were destroyed, only one person could be traced back to the issue. Sosuke Tamada. Detectives interview him, and he admits to influencing the entire thing despite not writing the code himself. However, right after that, everyone in the room ends up dead. It's unknown how it could have happened. 10 years pass. It's now 2006. A lead detective in the case has never let it go, and due to curiosity, begins to play the game. Tamada said that whatever caused all of these issues was actually in the beginning of the game. Now, here's where the story loses any semblance of real-world horror. To summarize even more quickly, going into the grass without Oak's permission causes a sequence to play in where the player's deceased relatives appear and call out to them to follow them into the afterlife. Somehow this also causes ghosts of the children and even Sosuke to appear in the room, and they also ask you to follow them into the afterlife. This influence causes the lead detective to end his own life, and that's it. But let's rewind a bit to the start. A hidden frequency that causes harm to kids. That's believable in some capacity, right? Maybe even too believable. Some may laugh at the possibility of anyone believing in the fact that a video game song could ever cause any of the adverse effects that were described in this story, but that laughter may cease when they realize that people did or do believe in it. Like a disease, hysteria can also spread from person to person, even when it comes to an urban legend. Especially when there's supposed proof, like in the video, Real Japanese Red Lavender Town song, read link in description, where they play the game. Viewer discretion is advised. We also have the even more infamous video, Response to Lavender Town Missing Frequencies Mystery, raw unedited version. This video supposedly proved that Lavender Town's theme possessed hidden frequencies by running it through a spectrogram. But alright, what does that have to do with any real life horror, right? I mean, if people believe in an urban legend, it isn't necessarily hurting anyone. Fast forward 10 years from when this story was originally posted on Pastebin. Daryl Talks Games will release a video called, "Why Were We All Obsessed with Lavender Town?" Besides some other things I'll get into in a bit, he says this.
Why did it give me headaches to listen to the Lavender Town music after all these years? And why did I have a friend once tell me that re-listening to the song legitimately made him look out a third-floor balcony and suddenly realize that he could jump if he really wanted to?
People were truly affected by this. This wasn't just an urban legend that creeped people out. No, this was something that caused real adverse effects, albeit less extreme than the legend states. But how is this possible? Well, Daryl Talks Games also basically explained this. I'll use my own example though. Flashback to 1518, way before video games were even a thought. In the city of Strasbourg, something was brewing. It all began one early July morning when a woman began to dance feverishly in the street. Soon, more and more people began to break out and dance. This didn't just last a day. It lasted until early September, nearly 2 months later. Allegedly, some of these people may have even danced until their last breath. You may be confused as to why I'm mentioning this. Well, it actually ties back perfectly to the spread of Lavender Town syndrome. See, among the theories attempting to explain why the dancing sickness happened, one includes mass hysteria, a phenomenon where a group of people believe in something fantastical that has just enough truth to convince them. A lot of times, like a placebo effect, this thing will cause actual side effects to these people. Daryl Talks Games also references a similar and even stronger event that happened in a small town in New York.
2 weeks pass. A friend of Katie's and a fellow cheerleader awakens from a nap with the same symptoms, except the tics are much more centered in her arms. 2 weeks pass. Another member of the squad, this time someone who had only recently moved into town, falls victim to the same spasms, the same vocal outbursts. And before long, this seemingly contagious bout of Tourette's spreads to a 6th, 7th, 8th, 12th, and 15th student. Within 2 months of the first case, 20 people are now stricken with the same condition. And now, this is beyond just the cheerleading squad. It's affecting girls in different social circles all across the school, even a boy and one 36-year-old woman in town. The Tourette's is spreading at an alarming rate. However, Tourette's is not contagious.
A group of people all developed symptoms congruent with Tourette's due to one person actually having it, and someone near them developing symptoms of it, likely because they were worried about having Tourette's. Everyone just believed it could spread, and so it did. Lavender Town syndrome has the same phenomenon. Just the idea that it's possible is enough to cause people real-world side effects. The mind is just that powerful, and that's what's so terrifying. It's not something that can be avoided necessarily. If you even have a slight belief that this could be real, it could affect you anytime you listen to the song. But speaking of the song, there's also a real reason that this affects people. Some of you will know where I'm going with this, especially if you've seen the Daryl Talks Games video I mentioned before. If you can hear the song currently playing in the background, you'll be able to hear pseudotones, a frequency that can cause pain in the eardrums and headaches that worsen over time the more you listen to the song. Well, not really, because they aren't real. But if you didn't know that, it probably did affect you. This is an example that Daryl Talks Games also used, and it's the best possible simulation of what can cause mass hysteria. And believe it or not, there are actually weapons made of sound that are meant to harm people. Sound can hurt you. Kids do hear frequencies adults can't, and Nintendo did allegedly change the theme from the Japan to worldwide releases. These things just make the whole thing so much more believable. I think that's why this is so scary. There are little things that continue to convince people. Because of how fragile the human mind is, just thinking that something is true is enough to cause widespread real-world effects.